What is up, my friend? David Moss Jr. here, and in this video, we're gonna do a full setup and review the brand new ReGen Total Wellness OG Cold Plunge. There's a lot to talk about, so let's go ahead and jump right in. First thing I want to talk about is the ReGen Total Wellness lineup. Now, what we're going to be reviewing here today is called the OG tub, and these start at $47.40, but they also have a much more heavy duty, more premium cold plunge called the Blast, and that starts at $85.90. We might review that later on down the line, but for today's video, we're going to talk about the bread and butter, and that is the OG. There's a few key things that stood out to me when it comes to this tub. One is it's plug and play. Comes on a nice pallet, everything is inside, it has an insulated lid, and all the components are already hooked up. All you have to do is figure out where you want it, have a couple buddies help you pick it up and bring it there because it is somewhat heavy. But once you figure out where you want it, place it there. You're gonna always have your chiller off to the right side. You're gonna connect your chiller with the heavy duty tubing that's already included and attached to the tub, fill it up with water, and plug it in. Now, when it comes to chillers, I'm pretty excited about this company because they use the chillers that I highly recommend. I've had no issues at all with my Active Aqua chiller and my Eco Plus chiller. They have the 1/2 horsepower Eco Plus chiller, which is capable of reaching temperatures of 36 degrees. They also have the Step Up, it's a heavy duty, and it's the 1 horsepower Active Aqua, also capable of reaching 36 degrees, but it's gonna pull a little bit more power. The cool thing about having the options is depending on where you live is gonna determine which chiller it is that you actually need. If you live somewhere extremely hot like Arizona, I live in Florida, so it gets hot here, but I find that I don't necessarily need the 1 horsepower chiller to keep my water at the desired temp. But if you live somewhere where it gets really, really hot, I'm talking like Arizona desert heat, they have the 1 horsepower option, which might be perfect for you because that'll be able to keep your temperature down at that 36 degrees or anywhere in between if that's what you want. While we're talking about options, the other option is the tub size. Now, they have the standard tub size and they also have the XL. The biggest difference is gonna be a few inches. The standard tub is gonna be for people who are up to 6 feet tall, whereas this is the XL, and the XL is meant for people who are over 6 feet tall. A few other things to note is these are overbuilt for the coldest winters and the hottest summers, as well as keeping these indoor or outdoors. So you can use this thing 12 months a year. Speaking of 12 months, that comes with a 12-month warranty, but you do have the option to extend that to 3 years or 5 years for an additional cost. This next part is kind of interesting. If you're not new to my channel, you know how I got started doing this is I actually built my own DIY cold plunge, shared it with YouTube, and now this is what I do is I review products. I'm kind of being considered like the Carfax of health and wellness products. So it's really cool. I get to play around with a lot of these things and I get to see the things that work really well and I get to see the things that I wish everybody would just change. A couple things that I like about this particular tub so far before I even plug it in and turn it on is they're using a larger filter, which is great. It's gonna keep the water cleaner. It's also going to have to be changed out a little less often. And another thing that adds on to that is the pump and the setup that they have is pretty unique in its design that it causes a massive amount of what we consider flow rate. It allows a lot of water to cycle through this system every single hour. And what that means is that's gonna keep your water cleaner longer, but it's also gonna keep your water colder. And because of the insulation that's underneath this and filled out inside this entire tub, it should keep your water at your desired temperature without breaking the bank in power. And that's another thing that I wanted to mention with their chiller choice. By using a 1/2 horsepower Eco Plus chiller, that's only gonna pull around 7 amps, which is not that much. And it's only gonna pull 7 amps when the chiller is working hard. If you do upgrade to the 1 horsepower Eco Plus chiller, that's gonna pull somewhere around 10 amps, which isn't that much more. And once again, that only happens when the chiller is on and it's chilling down the water. But because of the insulation and the lid, it doesn't necessarily have to do that 24/7. But you want to keep this plugged in 24/7. I'm trying to answer a lot of questions that I get on my private messages on Instagram all the time, and people are always asking, do you unplug it, put it on a timer? No, the answer from me, my experience and my opinion, is keep it plugged in, keep your pumps on, keep everything running 24/7 so it keeps your water cleaner and keeps your water cold whenever you want to get in. All right, so that's all those facts and that's great, but now let's go ahead and set this thing up. So this is the backside, and there's also a cover that's gonna go over this and cover all this from the elements, but also cover it from view. If this is somewhere you don't want people to see, totally fine. Everything's larger. Like I said, it's overbuilt. So they use 1.5 inch tubing and piping throughout most of the components where the water's gonna be moving. They also did something pretty interesting here. If you're somebody who likes to change your water out regularly, when you drain tubs like this, it can take a little bit of time, but check this out. Right here, they actually put the spigot, the drain spigot, on the other side of the pump. What that means is when you are ready to drain this water and change this water out, all you have to do is close the pipe up here so the water doesn't go through your filter, keep it open down here at the bottom, and just plug it in and open up your spigot. What that's gonna do is that's gonna force the water out the spigot, making it extremely easy and fast to change out the water if and when you decide to do that. But now let's go ahead and connect it to the chiller. So pretty easy. All you're gonna do is put your chiller off to this side where these tubes go. So the top tube is the in, and that is where the water is actually gonna be going into the chiller. So you're gonna unscrew this little cap that comes with it to keep it safe and from cracking during shipping. And you're going to put this tip, the in, on the inlet. And you wanna make sure that this is tight, but let me give you a little piece of advice. Sometimes this can get a little wedged inside the cap. So pull the tube out, not hard, but just kind of make sure that the tube is not getting wedged inside there so you don't have any leaks. And then tighten it all the way down. Now, we're gonna take our out and do the exact same thing, but on the outlet. Interesting thing that not a lot of people know is that almost every chiller on the market does not have a pumping mechanism, meaning it can't pump water, and that's why you need a pump. The pump is actually what moves the water through the entire system, and they're not always combined. Most of the time they're not actually. You also want a filter, and that's the cool thing about this setup is you get it all. You get a great chiller, a great filter, a great pump, and then a great tub. Now we've got our chiller hooked up. I undid all my electrical wires. There's really just 2 plugs you're gonna need, which is great. Plugs right into your standard household outlet, which is awesome. Once again, it pulls under 10 amps, so you can just plug it right into any wall, which is amazing. I talked about the filters, and I want to also really quickly talk about how you can keep the life of your pump a lot longer, and that's by using a pre-filter. And the cool thing is ReGen Total Wellness actually includes this pre-filter, and this is gonna pop down here, right there at the bottom. So what that's gonna do is that's gonna just keep any debris, leaves, or anything like that going through your pump, because that could actually damage your pump. Just wanted to go ahead and throw that out there. That is super important to make sure that you always have that in the bottom of your ReGen tub. If you purchase one of these tubs, you're gonna get a bag full of goodies, which is cool. One of those things is actually gonna be this water filtration for your hose. Super important. I wanna show you a little hack. You see how I have my hose kinked here? These things are carbon filters, so you don't wanna just put it in your tub to fill up right when you turn the hose on. You actually want you wanna let the water shoot out. Watch this. So you see how the water was a little black at first? It's gonna filter out the carbon, so you wanna let it run for about 15 seconds before you actually put it in your tub to start filling up. And that's exactly what we're gonna do now. So while I've got this filling up, I wanna go ahead and talk about the specs of the different sizes you could get. Now this is the XL, but they also have the standard. And like I mentioned earlier, the standard is for anybody who is under 6 feet. So it's gonna be a little bit of a smaller tub. It's also gonna take up a little bit of a smaller footprint. Now the footprint dimensions I'm gonna talk about aren't necessarily the tub dimensions, but it's how much room you're gonna need from the front to the back with all the components, also from the left side all the way to the right side where the chiller is gonna be. And for a tub, they don't take up a massive footprint. For the standard tub, you're gonna need yourself 83 inches long by just 39.5 inches wide. And that's from the front of the tub all the way to the back with room for your components. That tub will also hold 70 gallons of water, which is another reason it stays so clean. It's a lot less volume of water. Now, if you upgrade to the XL, which is what this tub is, that footprint is gonna be a little bit longer, and that'll take up 89 inches long from the front all the way to the right side where the chiller is, and a little bit wider at 41 inches. It'll also hold 20 additional gallons, so the XL will hold 90 gallons of water. I feel like the measurements aren't necessarily always that important, but I do like to mention them. If you're like me and you're like, okay, this is pretty sick, I like the look of this tub, I like the price of this tub, I wanna get a little bit more information, I wanna let you know that if you go down in the video description, I will have a link that will take you directly to the landing page where you'll get all the information that you need on the OG tub. And after you watch this entire video, go to that website, do your research, and decide that this is the tub you wanna get. Make sure that you use discount code MAUS, that's M-A-U-S, and it'll save you a little bit of money. One little tip that I also love to mention whenever you're filling this up for the first time, as long as the water is above this little filter, this is also where water will go in, so water will go in the bottom and the side here. As long as water's above that, you can actually turn it on and make sure everything's working great. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna plug everything in. The first thing I'm gonna plug in is the chiller. Make sure this fires up. We're looking good there. Now, it's time to plug in the rest. Water's moving, I hear it. There we go. Oh my gosh, there was a frog in there. Well, as you can see, we're off and running. I'm gonna let it continue filling up. I'm gonna let it continue cycling through. Another thing I love is it has the UV ozone sanitization, which is awesome. So it's gonna constantly drip a little bit of ozone into my tub. What that's gonna do is that's gonna help keep my water cleaner longer. So you've got a pre-filter, you've got a massive filter, you've got a heavy flow rate, and you have a UV ozone generator. We're gonna have a pretty clean, pretty clear, pretty cold tub here. So using the Eco Plus chiller is actually extremely easy. And if you end up with the Active Aqua, they're both identical, super simple to use. You're gonna have a power button, which you just wanna make sure it's on, because just because water's flowing through it doesn't mean it's on. You wanna make sure that the power is on, and when it says cooling, that means it is consuming power and is currently cooling. Once it reaches the desired temperature that you set it to, the cooling feature will turn off and water will continue going through it. As long as you see that power button on, the chiller is on, and if the temperature does start to rise, like it's a really hot day, this will turn back on when it needs to get your water down to your set temp. Now here's how you set it. You just press the set button. Currently have it set to 65, but we can lower it down to whatever we desire. We can set it to 36 degrees, and then you just hit set one more time, and that is my set temp, 36 degrees. So now it's gonna be working really hard to get my water down to 36 degrees. Now we can see everything's working well. We're gonna cover this up. There's already screws in the tub, so you don't have to screw anything in. And then just rest like that. Covers everything up. So we're almost full, and it's almost time for me to jump in and actually size test this thing with myself, who is 6'1", and I'm about 210 pounds right now. I've been bulking. It's bulking season. I'm not getting fat, I'm bulking. You don't care. But a question that I get all the time on chillers is how fast does it actually cool the water down? Now there's a lot of factors that are gonna dictate how fast they actually cool down the water. But kind of rule of thumb on the half horsepower is a half horsepower chiller is typically gonna chill your water down between 5 and 7 degrees per hour. The full horsepower chills typically between 8 and 10 degrees per hour. The smaller chillers take a lot longer, and the bigger chillers aren't necessary. I don't know how important that is to you, but a lot of people ask me, so I just want to make sure I'm answering all your questions. And if you have any questions that I haven't answered, pop them down in the comments below. I read every single comment. I respond to every comment that needs it. And if you want a little deeper, intimate conversation with me, just reach out to me on Instagram. I'm super accessible. It's at @dmossjr. I'll have it pop up right here. Reach out to me on Instagram with any questions you want. I do a lot of video chats, and I'll answer any of your questions right there. Here's another tip for you when it comes time to fill it up and actually figure out where you want your water line to be, because there's no like fill line here. I would recommend that when you have about 10 inches from the top, go ahead and get in while the water's still filling up, so that you can determine the water placement of when you're getting in the tub. You can see how high the water rises. That way you know exactly where you want your water to be, and it doesn't accidentally overflow on your floor if you do decide to have this inside of a gym, a garage, or somewhere that you don't want the floor to get soaking wet. And I'm gonna do exactly that. Let's go ahead and jump in this thing. We got a little more room in here. I can put about another 5 inches of water in here before it actually overflows, which is nice. But a couple of things, as soon as I get in this thing, like, this is a luxury tub. It's a nice luxury tub. Heavy duty, super solid. Like, the one thing I will say about this thing is I've gotten a lot of different cold plunges. This is a solid tub, and underneath it is completely filled with an insane amount of foam, which is cool because not only does that help insulate the tub and keep your water colder, it also adds a little bit more weight and also a little bit more resilience to this thing. This thing feels like it's gonna be pretty strong. A few things I love about this design is that both sides are slanted. Actually, all 4 sides are slanted down, and that's how they get away with using less water. When you have less water, it cools your water a lot faster, it keeps your water clean a lot longer, and it obviously fills up a lot faster too. But what's cool about the design too is it gets a little bit wider at the top, both sides. So even if you're a larger person, you can sit down in here, get really comfortable. You can have your arms spread nice and wide, your legs spread nice and wide, which when you're cold plunging is really important. You don't want to have a lot of warm pockets, and that can happen sometimes when you're in a smaller basin, or if you're in a smaller, you know, barrel or anything like that. And I like all of them. Like, I'm a really big fan of any cold plunge. You're getting cold, even if it's a cold shower, I'm a fan. But I also like that there's an inlet on the back, there's also an inlet on the bottom. It's a really cool design, so it doesn't accidentally restrict water flow and potentially damage your pump. And I like that the jets are down here on the other side, so it's constantly forcing water up my direction. That may not make a huge difference to a lot of people watching, but one of the things that you want to try to do when you're cold plunging is break up that thermal layer. And how you do that is by having jets force water to break up that thermal layer that your body will actually create if you're sitting still in stagnant cold water. But all in all, an extremely comfortable tub, extremely comfortable experience. I gotta say, I'm a fan. Now let's talk about it. All right, so let's do a recap. This is the OG from ReGen Total Wellness. The way I have it set up is the XL tub, and I have the half horsepower Eco Plus chiller, which has the capabilities of reaching 36 degrees. This entire setup, the way it comes with the insulated lid and everything that it came with, comes to $53.90, which for what you get is actually a pretty good deal. It's overbuilt, it's good for those Arizona deserts, it's also good for those Midwest winters. That's what they're claiming. You can have it indoors, you can have it outdoors. It comes with a 12-month warranty, and you can upgrade that to a 3 or a 5-year warranty and have 0% financing available. I'd say if you're looking for a luxury cold plunge, something that looks really good, doesn't take up a large footprint, and you like the tub style, this is one you probably want to consider. And if you do decide to get one for yourself, just make sure you use discount code MAUS, that's MAUS, and the link down in the description below will take you right to it. And like always, if you have any questions, pop them down in the comments below. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you on the next video. Have a great day, guys, and God bless.